Welcome to Jackpotting Around, a podcast about politics, economic policy, tax law, bipartisan something or others. Just kidding. It's a podcast about the Utah Jazz basketball. I am Chad Lowe. Joining me is a man who just wants to make the Jazz great again, Art Cummings.
That's all I want to do. That's all you want to do. We really just want to see the Jazz be great again. That's really it.
We can be united through Utah Jazz basketball,
Yes.
maybe. Good. So, how you been?
Doing good. Doing
Yeah,
good. How are you doing?
you know, I'm tired, but I'm hanging in there. So I, there's not a lot going on this week, and so I
No, it was
figured
very
we'd jump
quiet
on
week.
and talk
Very
Jazz
quiet night,
basketball, the thing that everyone wants to discuss right now. Um, the Jazz playing again this week, but I did want to take a quick detour here. When we first started the podcast, we explained kind of who we are and why we wanted to do this, and we explained the name of the podcast. And since then, I've had a lot of like interactions here and there with people who are Jazz fans out here in Sacramento near me. And I mentioned the name of the podcast, and they're like, "Can I give it a weird eye?" And I'm like, "No, it's a really good name. It's a really funny name. You should be impressed by how smart we are."
I mean, we really bounced off a couple of names, and we once we like said that one, it just really stuck, and we knew that was going to be the name of the podcast.
But there is a history and a background that I think was lost somewhere that needs to be rekindled. It needs to be remembered forever. It involves two Jazz legends, Jerry Sloan, who people may have heard of, who coached the Jazz for 100 years. And I'm going to botch the name, but it's Criello Besenko.
Big
Uh,
Fest, baby.
Big Fest, otherwise known as Big Fest, a 7'1" Ukrainian brute who was drafted by the Utah Jazz in the second round. And if you aren't familiar with his game, he was just a monster, just huge. Physical, athletic. He's one of these guys that would come in the game and bodies would just drop. And I'm not talking about the opposing team bodies. I'm talking about all the bodies are dropping, including his own team. I believe he actually I think he hurt one of the guys on it. I want to say it was like Paul Millsap or something, like gave him stitch. Like he was just a monster.
Whatever you're thinking about, if you don't know who he is, whatever you're thinking about in your mind about how big he is, just think even bigger.
Yeah. Just big, and was athletic and moved well for
300
especially for
plus
that time.
pounds.
Yeah. And was really a guy that like we had some crazy thoughts about how great he could be. And while he completely disappointed us, a lot of times partly because of, work ethic, he did not disappoint off the court ever. Just some of the great quotes. There was obviously like a language barrier there too, but also just a young guy and just kind of no filter and was just awesome. But Jerry Sloan, after his, third year with the Jazz, people were talking to him about Fez. And Fez, Jerry wasn't necessarily the happy-go-lucky guy that Fez was. And he mentioned that he was still not happy with Fazenko being a happy-go-lucky guy. He's a young kid, and young guys have a tendency that they want to have some fun. I don't have too much problem with that, Jerry said, but sometimes it interferes with their progress. You can't jackpot around and get better. And it was just a weird, phrase that we all kind of took on Jazz fans and put it in the normal lexicon. But jackpotting around, hey, we're just kind of out here messing around, throwing the ball around, probably pissing Jerry Sloan off, and just having a great time like Fess would want. Any thoughts on your end on Fess? I talked a lot. I feel passionately about Fess and Jerry.
Yeah, I was a little bit younger around this time. So I was probably about when Fest was in his prime. I was about 11, 12, 13-ish around there. And I was talking on Jazz message boards at the time. Um, and there was a lot of optimism about him. Just a lot of blind optimism. He was a second round pick, but the team was pretty good back then, so we didn't have a lot to work with high draft capital wise. Um, so just his just brute size is the number one thing I remember. Anytime he'd get in some couple garbage minutes, make like a really nice play, and we would just hype him up like no other.
Yeah.
Uh, but just we got a very memorable quote out of him. So his time in Utah will never be forgotten for sure. And unfortunately, he ended up on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So
We are second favorite team. He there was another quote too because they were asking him about driving. That I just it's I've heard this quote in the back of my head like a million times. I couldn't go find it, but just as I've been going through uh, life lessons by Fez, he was being asked about driving, and he's like, I haven't decided if I get a car. They're kind of asking him what car he would get. He's like, I don't know. I don't want to get something nice because I'm not sure how good a driver I'll be, and I don't want to have something that if I wreck it, that it will hurt my soul. And I've always thought about that. I mean, there's obviously like a little like language barrier that's kind of fun, and but I always thought that's a great way to put, like, I don't want to have anything so nice that when it gets hurt or when it gets dented or scratched or whatever, that it hurts my soul. And
you sure he
there's
wasn't
truth to
talking
that.
about a Kia Soul?
He might have been. I don't know. I'm not gonna have a Kia Soul. No, I don't even know if Kia Souls were
He
invented
would
back
not
in the time
fit
of
in
Fed.
one. I will tell you that.
No, no, he was a Kia Soul. So anyway, that's where the name comes from, and that's why we liked it. It was a good time, and a little less niche than some of the other. Um, Irwin, our guy, who on Jazz fans has another name, was
What's his name on there?
I don't know. He's a doctor, I think so. Anyone can guess, but
I got you. Okay.
he had mentioned a whole bunch of different things on there that are just deep jazz fans lore that are some pretty funny stories, but it would take 30 minutes to explain the story of why that's a thing. Um,
Well, the what a throwback the other day to somebody seeing Cody Williams at Best Buy. That was just
yeah,
you couldn't like write that any better. That was just awesome.
yeah.
What does
Anyway,
it mean, Chad?
what?
What
Yeah, what
does
does
it
it mean?
mean?
I don't know, man.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
either, but it means something.
Only if you had a churro. So, um, all right, let's actually talk about the Jazz, and we're gonna play a game that is a completely original game that we don't just keep renaming um, to whatever current event is going on. But this one's going to be called Both Sides, where we say something nice about the Jazz and we say something mean about the Jazz and what we saw this week. I'll give you the floor, and
Sure.
you can pick nice or mean. And I think honestly, like last time, it was hard to find nice things.
Oh
This
yeah,
time,
it
it
was.
might be harder to find mean things.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to find nice thing. First one that pops in my mind is John Collins, how well he's been playing. I mean,
Ooh,
he just kind of I don't know, man. It just watching I kind of posted some of my thoughts is just watching him off the bench. Just a lot more enjoyable player. He's literally yamming on guys every night. He's just playing with force, playing with power, playing his game. And he's looked really, honestly, he's looked really good. He's looked really good. He seems like he's embracing that role. I feel like he's showing some leadership as well. Um, he's definitely just been playing really good. And I would like to shout out John Collins. He does get a lot of flack from Jazz fans. We've given him our fair share, mostly not really due to his fault. It's due to his contract size and what we ultimately gave up to get him, even though it wasn't much, but it was cap space. So, yeah, he's gotten some flack from us, but been a pretty good redemption story, I would say, so far this season. Kind of worried about how he was going to handle going to the bench. He had a quote preseason about, he kind of takes pride in being a starter and he expects to be a starter in the league. So, just a little bit. You don't know how guys are going to handle it, and he's handled it better than anybody could ever expected, and he's really thriving and rolling. And we'll kind of get into it later, but I think he could be slightly improving his trade value at the moment. Like this
Ooh,
version
okay.
of John Collins off the bench can help a lot of teams.
Yeah, and total pro, obviously about everything. Even though he was talking about the bench roll, like that's fine. I haven't seen any bad body language yet, and we know that I've been studying the body
Yeah.
language of all the Jazz players
Yes.
constantly. So, um, two things that John Collins always gives us too: at least one cool dunk a night, and one, you know, FAFO moment where it's like, hey, some stuff's going down, and John Collins steps in the middle and is like, no, it's not happening. Or he, steps to another guy. And I appreciate both of those things. It's not in a loud Jay Crowder kind of way, like, hey, I'm going to start a fight now. But it's like, hey, you know, a quiet, like, this is over now. We're squishing this. And you can kind of see the respect he gets in that type of role. But that's really fun. And I always appreciate the guys that are doing that because it's supposed to be fun.
For sure. Yeah. Shout out John Collins.
I like that. All right, I'm gonna take a mean one or not good one, because uh, I don't think there are a lot of mean ones. But Bryce Sensabaugh's playing time. I'm not happy about it, Will Hardy, and I understand what we're doing. I understand Johnny Juzang is probably a better player. He's never missed a shot, I don't think, ever.
No, he hasn't. He like
At
we
least not in the
joke about
preseason
it,
he didn't.
but he's seriously going to shoot his way to another team. It's just going to happen.
I kind of know what he is, and I think I know. I have a better idea of what Johnny Juzang is, but I need to see Bryce more, and I need to see him. I don't want him to be given the Dante Exum quick hook every time he has a bad mistake, or I think you just, hey, we're going to play you 15 or 20 minutes every night, and we're going to live with your mistakes, but you're going to hear about them when we pull you out, but we're not going to yank you because of them. You can't play basketball that way. You have to have your head clear, especially as a young player. And so, not that I know better than Will Hardy, but I'm just telling you that's what I need to happen.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
mean,
my mean thing,
for
my
sure.
not happy thing.
You can't play basketball worrying about not making a mistake. You're not going to play your game. You're going to make mistakes. You're literally going to be thinking, "Man, I can't make a mistake. I'm going to get taken out." It's literally the worst way to play basketball. And my one mean thing or one bad thing was kind of similar. For one, I totally agree with you about Bryce Sensabaugh. I am one of his noted biggest fans. The other noted one is Josh on Twitter. Shout out JJazz3. Um, I like reading his posts too. But
Mhm.
Kyle Filipowski's not getting enough minutes either. I was the past two games, man. It's just been kind of weird. I've looked at the box score when he gets taken out just to see how many minutes he's played, and like 12 minutes last game or 14, and he didn't play for like the rest of the time after. He plays a couple minutes into the third quarter, and then we don't see him again until garbage time, and it's been brutal. Those two guys, Bryce Sensabaugh and Kyle Filipowski, those are my two guys that I like probably a little bit more than consensus, and just want to see more of them and less Patty Mills. So that little bundle right there.
That's
I don't want to see Patty Mills anymore. I'm sorry.
that's
I'm good on my I got my Patty Mills quota for the rest of the year.
that's coming, and I appreciate what Patty Mills is doing. When Collier comes back, I think Patty Mills' minutes go down to
For
nothing.
sure. For sure.
And I like that Patty's like, hey, I'm gonna stay out of the way mostly. Like he's not trying to do too much. Like I don't know, John Lucas the third, or yeah, it was just like so.
Tank Commander
It's
Mount
like, oh
Rushmore.
man, another pull up jumper for you. Like this isn't what we
Never
wanted. So
never saw a shot. He didn't he would make Jordan Clarkson blush, honestly.
maybe he very nice guy. Yeah, I agree. And Flip has looked awesome. He's one of the few guys when he catches the ball and he's going to shoot that I'm like, oh, I think it's going in almost every time, which is a total like he's he's improved his jump shot from college. Like it was always looked good mechanically, but the result was not what you would think it would be. And he's clearly got some confidence too. Just the way he is like dribble. He's not hiding. is being aggressive. And so I'm really impressed with Flip. Um, yeah, I need more Flip.
We just need more. We need more. Like it's just not even a question. Come on, Will. I know you're listening.
Um, I have two other nice ones, but I'm going to save one because we're going to talk about this guy in detail. Um, so I'm going to go with the other one. The other nice one is that we fixed the Colin Sexton problem. We did it. It only took us one podcast, and he's back starting,
Not a
and he's
coincidence.
playing more minutes. Yeah, Will Hardy obviously is a big listener. When we see more Flip and more Bryce, no, I think they kind of were like, "What are we doing?" And he started. He didn't play as many minutes in the one game we got blown out, um, but got his, what should be his normal allocation of minutes in Chicago and played well,
Yeah.
and gave us the jump ball meme.
I was just about to say he gave an iconic young bull moment, just hand fighting with Big Vooch and Vooch was visibly like he was like annoyed. He's like, dude, what are you doing? Colin Sexton just straight face, like let's get it going, you know?
It
So
was it was just so Colin Sexton. It's not even like the touching the arm. It's just the when Booch looks at him, just the look that Colin gives. It's just like such a little brother like energy of like, what? I'm not. I'm. What do you want? Like,
yeah,
and then just the look on his face as the jump ball's going up. Like, I just, I'm just so pleased with how agitated I made this man. So
for sure.
love Colin. Good times.
We love Colin.
Um. So we talked about basketball. The other thing is that I mentioned, the other nice thing I was going to mention was Keyonte George has kind of the last two games and definitely the Chicago game, he obviously went bonkers. But I wanted to dive more into Keyonte because I think we've mentioned it in the past. Like I had some thoughts as far as like I don't know that Keyonte is a point guard and there's different things, but kind of why I think that. And I just thought we'd have a more detailed conversation about Keyonte before we get into a couple other things. But Keyonte was friggin' awesome the other night, and it was both things. It was passing, it was shooting, and all that. Where where I've kind of had my concerns with Keyonte is as an advantage creator. He's not like he gets separation a little bit. He can get to the rim and do that stuff, but a lot of his stuff is contested. Like he's not blowing by guys. And to be like the full scale point guard you want him to be, you kind of need that advantage creation. Where his advantage creation comes is more in that pull up jumper. And, when that shot is falling, the other stuff opens up, but he kind of has to have that. And then so it was kind of cool that it blew up and he had basically like a 30 and 10 game.
Yeah.
But as far as Keyonte George, what are you seeing when you're now that he's having a little bit more success? Like, where are your thoughts on Keyonte at this point?
Yeah, so I think you make valid points. I think Keontae is one of those guys where like he just needed to see a couple go in. He was having a really rough stretch there. I mean, we kind of highlighted it last pod, but when he gets going, like he's unstoppable. You can't really do much. He's making threes. I you can't go under a screen on him either because he'll just stop and drain the three. So I think that's he's like you said, he's not really an advantage creator, but that is an advantage he can do off the dribble, off of picks. You can't go underneath it because he can splash the three in your face. I do. I would like to see him do a little bit more of his driving to the paint, and I feel like last year he had a little bit better kind of he would get contact, but still throw like he had a nice in the air adjustment to get floaters up, and he was making a lot of those, it seemed like. So I think when he gets in that game, when he just I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but when he gets going, like we all saw it. Tied his career high. He had a free throw to make the career high, and he missed it, but just passing the ball too. I think he's an underrated passer. We don't talk about how good of a passer he is. He's, I believe, 12th in the league right now in assists per game.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I didn't know
I
that.
think I need to double check that, but so I think that's an underrated part of his game that I like, and that kind of opens up his offensive game when he's passing the ball. and getting guys involved. And he has a lot of potential assists as well. I've seen that. So let me, I'm gonna confirm that. But
Yeah. Um, and and I guess like when I'm saying he's not a point guard, like kind of my thought is that he's just not the primary creator organizer, at least not at this point. And I had wondered if he needed to take some of that off of his plate because of, the when you're trying to process five, six, all these different things. Yeah, he is number 12 in
yeah, he's
assists. So,
with Shea Gilgeous
yeah.
Alexander. Rodgers
Um,
actually. So that's I think that's a little underrated. We don't really talk about that part of his game that much. So, you know,
Yeah, and it's just the
pretty good.
organization of the offense and doing all that stuff. I just wondered if it was like, hey, if you had him out there sharing duties, and I kind of think they've done that a little bit the last couple games. Or maybe it's just shots went in and then I'm convincing myself that some narrative that I made up is true. That happens. I am not immune to that, but it did seem like, oh, he's getting like some spot up, a few more spot up jumpers or things like that, and maybe that gets him going. Or maybe it's just that the ball was moving a lot better, instead of just having to be in his hands, as he's bringing up and being methodical with it, like kind of get things, the juices going, and it frees everything up. Maybe it was just playing Chicago and our
Yeah, I
guy,
mean,
Taylor
he
Horton
think
Tucker.
yeah. He seems like he's one of those guys though, if he gets going a little bit early too, he can really have some big games. I think um just like you said, getting some easy shots early on, getting to the free throw line can really help him. But we'll see how it continues. I have a lot of faith in Keontae. I think I've seen like national pundits and analysts say even when Keontae's playing bad, there's just something about him. Not necessarily playing bad, just when he's playing bad, it means he's not making his shots because he's still doing other stuff. But when he's not making his shots, there's just something about him that you still just believe in him. Like you just see a good basketball player, you know? Like I think he's a good enough shooter that he will come around. What we saw earlier in the season wasn't him. I'm just a big believer in him. I would like to see him have some good shooting games in a row though. Like
Yeah.
that would be good for him and his confidence. But man, when he's got it going though, like you can see it with him. You can see him being a 20 plus points per game scorer for sure.
Well, and the other thing too is I wondered early in the season, like he had that slip in Dallas, and so he has a knee, and then he had like another thing, um, like I want to say he like tweaked an ankle, or like if you have some of that leg stuff, like your jump shot is in your legs, and when your legs feel good, your jump shot feels good. He's young, so I wasn't my first thought, but it was something that when he was struggling, it was kind of in the back of my head watching these games. I was like, man, I wonder if it's he's just a little bit off because of that tweak. He didn't take really any time off
Yeah,
from those injuries, but and you kind of played through them. But he was definitely like fast and loose in Chicago. So and then he's got Dame coming up tomorrow, and so he should be able to get free for some open looks there. Um, yeah,
for sure. And if people remember coming out of college, he was a little bit heavier. He dropped a lot of weight, and a lot of us kind of like maybe it was too much at the time. And it's he doesn't seem as I think he put a little bit more on this season. So I think that will definitely help him as well. But he does have a very easy matchup. He's got a couple of inches on Dame, and Dame's not the most renowned defender in the league. So it would be good
they,
to see him put another good game together.
yeah. Yeah. And so I just kind of wanted to expand on that and just put that out there as far as like, it's not that I don't believe when I say I don't think Keyonte is a point guard or when you see me say that, like, I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to be a good guard of some sort. And he might even be like a high assist two guard. He might like, but the jump shot has to come for him. Like the
Yeah.
jump shot has to be nails or else he, it can't just be pretty. It's got to go in or else I think he's in trouble as far as creating and being like a good starter type of high level because the bar is just so high with these guards are so talented now. Um,
Oh, for sure. Even guys like that are middle of the pack would have been pretty highly regarded years
yeah.
ago, you know. It's just there's just so many talent. or so much talent in the league, like you said. But like just one more point on the passing. I think he's always been like a sneaky good passer, and he makes a couple plays per game that just a really good read and play. So he has that feel, like you said. I don't know. Like this season we can go definitely towards evaluating him. We don't know if he's exactly a pure point guard, or maybe like you said, he can be a high assist two guard who has the ball in his hands a lot and can create that way. Uh, we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see what happens with him. It was really good to have him have a really big game, especially with a lot of the other second year guys having some good games too. So it just was good to see, and I would just hope he can have a couple more games where he's putting together some good shooting games for sure.
And I think it's the right approach so long as he doesn't like there's if you don't put too much on his plate that it breaks him. I don't want to use Locke's Oreo over dipped Oreo cookie, but like it's more of like, hey, when you're weightlifting and like, okay, you're gonna stack on a bunch of weight on the bar. Like if as long as he doesn't break form and he's struggling through it, like great. But if it's one of those things where it's you know, hey, this is not working, you've got, potential to get injured or you're breaking form, it's not giving you the type of rep you need. Like, let's go ahead and strip a little bit of weight off it, and all of a sudden it looks easier. And I think that there is something to that, hey, make it hard for him, put all this on the plate. When you strip a little bit off, maybe it gets way more efficient because he's having to do less and process less, and the game's so much simpler and easier because he's kind of gotten those reps. And so I'm not even anti like, hey, we shouldn't be trying it. We should be trying it so much right now. And so anyway, Keyonte, I'm a big fan. I just am not gonna um, be wild about where I think he can go until he's shown a little bit more
Yeah,
consistent.
I just don't really like the it's like hot take. It feels like after every game. He's
Yeah,
after one bad game. Oh, the guys who don't really believe in him or think he's not as good as other people think. Yep, he's a bust. I knew it all along. Then he has this really good game and it's like, "Oh, all-star, all NBA." Like we have to have some kind of we have to just don't have to have hot takes after every game, whether it's good or bad. We just don't have to, you know.
absolutely. All right, Art. I have good news.
Let's hear
Um,
it. I'm excited.
I gained access to Danny Ainge's cell phone again, and I
Awesome. I love
saw some of his horny texts.
it.
Um,
Trademarked on here.
yeah, he saw the rumors about the Lakers wanting Walker Kessler, and he sent to Rob. Here's what he sent at 1 a.m. on Friday evening. He said, "Dem blocks though," with the heart eye emoji, three of those, a fire, and then there was a gif of the Rizzler. Um,
Nice.
and and attached to it, it was a basketball reference link that had it sorted, and it showed Walker Kessler third in the league in blocks per game at three per game. So I thought, in lieu of seeing some of these horny texts go out again, that we should play Who Says No.
Oh,
And
one of my favorite games to play with you.
Who Says No? And we'll just do a quick one because we're not full into trade season, but let's just give a little appetizer. Let's have
Sure.
some
I
chips
mean,
and salsa.
if you've listened to us for a while, we always like to get down with some trades. It's always I mean, it's okay.
The
There's nothing else
trades,
to talk about. Nothing's happened else this week, so we can get into it.
the trades are the guilty pleasure. Everyone's into it.
Yep,
It's
for
the
sure.
the Real Housewives of
Whether they admit it
whatever.
or not, it's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
We're here for you guys.
That's right. So, I know you have a couple. I have one. How you want to do this? You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first, you go second, and then I'll go third just because I have two.
Got it.
I couldn't decide between the two. One's a little, like I said, we'll see what you say. So the first one I have, we are not we're not Jazz insiders, but we do get an occasional nugget here and there about some stuff that maybe didn't hit national, you know, media or even Jazz local media. During the summer, I don't know what the extent was fully, but the Jazz were kind of I don't know if it was third party or like third team salary or if we were just maybe trying to take on some salary, not sign anybody. But the Jazz were kind of kicking the tires a little bit around Kevin Herter. I don't,
Oh,
like I said, I don't know what the extent was, but in this deal, who says no, Chad? John Collins to the Sacramento Kings for Kevin Herter and Trey Lyles. It matches salary wise. Trey Lyles isn't expiring. Don't love the idea of Trey Lyles coming back to Utah, of course. It's just for salary purposes, but just a basic 1-for-2 swap there.
um, so John Collins has, this is how big of a nerd I am. John Collins has 26.5 million for this year, next year. I mean, it's a player option, but let's be honest. He's gonna make that. He's gonna make that.
He's gonna opt into that.
Herder has what, like 18, 19 million next year?
He's this year he's 16 and a half. Next year it's probably around 17 or 18.
18 million,
Yeah.
almost flat, a little under 18.
Yeah.
Trey Lyles is expiring.
Honestly,
Um,
I'm not opposed to just buying out Trey Lyles. Like we probably wouldn't do that, but I'm not opposed to it.
I would make him practice so much and then I'd buy him.
Make him practice more than 3 hours. So
I at least make him like, don't do the Russell Westbrook where you're like, hey, don't even get on the plane, we're good. Like, make him show up and everyone ask him the questions about practice and make it really awkward and then be like, oh yeah, man, turns out we're cutting you.
you're gonna dust off the old 41 Trey Lyles jersey out the closet.
That's right. I was never a Trey Lyles fan, I'll tell you that much. So,
Oh, I know firsthand. A lot of us wanted the guy right after Trey Lyles, who I don't know how he ended up turning out, but
I tell you what, we're going to bring Trey Lyles in. We're going to put him on the balance beam one last time just to see what Dennis Lindsey saw when he did his balance routine that got him drafted so high, and we'll just see it one more time. Um, I will say that Sacramento might say no. John Collins is playing well. I just don't know if Collins Sabonis works. I haven't watched a lot. Herder came back and he's actually playing pretty well. He's coming off a shoulder surgery, but they also have Keon Ellis, who they like. They once Devin Carter comes back, this is a good one. You did a good job.
thank you.
Because I could see both teams saying yes, and I could see both teams saying no. For us, it's like, well, okay, another guard. Herder, Svi, and Juzang might merge into one person and become a super off-ball
We
shooter.
might just have the entire lineup for the 3-point contest.
There you go.
We get him.
Um, I like Kevin. I think the hate went a little far on him last year. But I could see both teams saying no. But I'll say for now, I think Sacramento says no until maybe till Devin Carter's able to play. I think Devin Carter's coming back at some point this season. I haven't seen any updates on him, but they'll want to get him on the floor, and he's like 35 as a rookie, so it's not like, you know.
No,
And
he's the
no, I'm
youngest
kidding.
guy for
I
sure.
love Devin Carter.
Yeah,
I
you did. You were leading that train.
Yeah, and then he had the injury, but I will say that Sacramento says no, at least for now, until later, and then maybe they would say yes. But I would wonder if even Danny Ainge. I mean, I guess if we were kicking the tires on it, um, that there would be interest. But maybe he's like, hey, we got Kevin Herter at home, and it's Johnny Juzang v. Mihailuk, you know.
Yeah.
So
I see it both ways. I could definitely see a world where it happens for sure.
I could also see that being like a third party type of thing where it's, hey, someone can't quite take John Collins. They don't want Collins, but they would want Herder, and we route Herder somewhere and get Trey Lyles and other expiring contracts and kind of cut bait just to kind of finesse the salary cap a little bit
Yeah.
for next year.
I mean, and another reason why, I mean, there's Sacramento's had interest in John Collins in the past, not necessarily since he's been on the Jazz, but when the Hawks were constantly having him in trade talks, they were one of the potential teams for him. So I don't know if he makes, like you said, they have Sabonis and stuff, but as a even as like a small ball five off the bench, like you deal with Sabonis, and then guess what? He goes to the bench. You got to deal with John Collins. I could see it. I really could. We'll see what happens. I mean, the Kings they're not blazing out the start of the season this year, so they might be interested. It makes
Yeah, Trey
sense. It
Lyles.
matches. So
I'm trying to look at their rotation. Trey Lyles is playing 16 minutes. DeRozan's playing 38. They probably don't want to. Well, DeMar DeRozan, for whatever reason, always plays like a crap ton of minutes, even though
he's
he's
always on the
getting
floor.
up
Like if
there.
you watch it when the Bulls and with the Kings, like I swear every time I watch them, he's on the floor. So
Yeah, yeah. Drake better watch out.
yeah,
DeMar don't quit. I guess Alex Len's in their rotation, like a little bit.
I don't. I mean,
They could probably find 20 minutes for. Oh, Doug McDermott's in their rotation. Come on, what are we doing? They could probably find 20 minutes for him or so, and so that would make sense. I could see that.
yeah.
I
They
could
could
certainly
they
see
could
that.
probably I mean they could talk themselves into his shooting as well. He's been
Yeah.
pretty around 36, 37% from three.
Yeah, it looks a little bit more fluid this year too, for whatever reason when he's shooting it. Like the above the break. The corner three looked pretty solid always, but like the above the break looked a little clunky, and it seems to be a little bit more fluid for him. Anyway, uh, I might hold on for a little bit better offer if I was the Jazz too. So
Wow.
you pretty much
John Collins has really flipped Chad's mind because
is
if this was months ago, Chad would have
is Kevin Herter
instantly
going to do a
smashed.
cool dunk or start a fight? He's not.
No,
So,
he's not, but hey, I'm just
but
saying
you
that
threaded the needle perfectly, and I'm proud of you because that one I don't have a definitive
for
answer.
sure. And
Great work.
that was my number. If I only had to pick one, it was gonna be that one. My next one, it's a little off the wall, but we get
All right.
creative around here.
Okay, so Danny sent that text, then blocks though, over to Rob Palinka because he sees that they want Walker Kessler bad. And so this is probably um you can probably guess where this is going, but I did the simplified version. There's a couple different versions you could do of this, but I'll just go a straight Walker Kessler for Bronny James. No, Walker Kessler for Jalen Hood Shafino, who is salary ballast in this deal. It's not, I mean, it's a flyer. It's fine. I think he was a good G League player. He wasn't a prospect I was really interested in, especially when they were talking about taking him as high as they were. And his shot is not great. And I think he's got a back injury too. That's part of the reason they declined his option. He's not the reason to do the deal. The reason to do the deal is that they would be taking the protections off the 2027 pick that we own, which is a nice deal. They're going to give us the 2031 pick that they own, and they're going to give us a 2029 super swap with the Minnesota and Cavaliers picks that we have. And the reason it's a swap is because if it was all of that straight picks, I think I would definitely take it. Um, but I wanted to make it a swap to make it so that you had to sweat a little bit at least.
Yeah.
Or if I was doing it, I would have to sweat and think about it.
So value wise, I think it's pretty spot on for what like I would trade Walker Kessler for. My initial thought is, are the Lakers going to mortgage pretty much a good portion of their future? Because we'd have their 2027 pick unprotected. We'd have the super swap in 2029, even if it's just a regular swap. And then in 2031, unprotected first. That's pretty hefty price to pay for Walker Kessler. They would have to really believe that he's gonna be that be that guy for them to really push them over the top because that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to give up. It's one of those where it's like, yeah, I'm not trading Walker for anything like less than that, like one first round pick, no thanks. But then at the same time, it's like, do the Lakers give up that much? At the time right now, I'd say the Lakers probably say no. I'd have a hard time thinking we'd say no to that just because it gives us so much more options, especially on protecting 2027 first. But hey, the one thing I think with the Lakers is JJ Redick's a really smart guy. He does studies a lot of film. He's one of those guys I could see kind of talking to Pelinka and saying like, "Hey, I know it might not seem like it, but Walker Kessler's impacting the game a lot and can really help us." I could see him doing that.
Yeah. The other thing is it works budget wise for them. We could do some other things to make it even more budget conscious for them because they are in like one of the aprons. They're quite a bit over the tax. And they do operate as a poverty franchise, even though they're in LA and they're the Lakers. Um,
What if they came back and said, we'll unprotected 2027 first. We'll give you an unprotected 2029 first and unprotected 2031 first. So two unprotected first, you're unprotected in 2027 first, but we want a Colin Sexton D'Lo swap added in. What do you
oof.
say then?
Um, that's a lot. I am only doing this deal later in the season if it benefits the tank. Right now, the tank is is phenomenal. It's incredible. It's the best tank that any tank's ever seen. Um,
For
sorry,
sure.
doing a little Trump there. It's the tank is rolling, and so if we get and it looks like okay, we've won a couple games in a row, and things are now I could do something big like that, but the issue with Colin Sexton's trade value, like the trade market is going to be a little bit constipated, and so the deals that we want to get, like the teams like the Lakers, they have two picks, like you said, this is their chance, right? They have two picks they can do, and then that's it. They're out of capital, and there's teams that have less than that. And then you've got teams like Brooklyn that are 4-4 right now that are probably panicking a little bit as far as hey, we probably got to move off of Schroeder, Dorian Finney-Smith or whatever. And so the offers aren't going to be great. And so a guy like Colin, you're going to have guys like Schroeder. You're going to have guys like, um, even like D'Lo. You're going to have guys that kind of fit that bench scorer need. And I can see teams going for like the budget version of what that is because that's what they're going to try to bring him in to be instead of the full, name brand. We know Colin Sexton's a better player than those guys. So I don't know that his trade value is going to be such that I want. And so I think it's a fair deal. I think it's too much, and I don't want to see both of those guys with the Lakers. And so I would probably say no,
Okay.
um, unless
I
the tank is in danger.
yeah,
You must
I could
preserve the
see
tank.
the Lakers coming back though and saying like we need a little bit more, especially just maybe just to sell it to the fan base too. Like we gave up all this just for Walker Kessler. They can say, "Hey, we gave up all this for Walker Kessler and Colin Sexton." So, I'm not entirely sure. It just makes a
I
lot of
mean, it's
sense.
only a pick and a swap, though. It's a
Yeah,
it's a it's a super swap.
yeah.
Uh,
But when you're a Laker fan and you can get Giannis with one first round pick,
it's true.
it seems like a lot.
You might have to put Austin Reeves in that one, but definitely
Hey,
could get it
oh,
done.
speaking of that, that reminds me. So, there was an article came out about the Jazz weren't interested in D'Angelo Russell. I think the source on that might be Tony Jones, honestly, because
Hmm.
Tony just straight up on Twitter was like the Jazz aren't interested in D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
So I think kind of piecing the puzzle there together. I don't know if it was exactly, hey, a source inside the Jazz. I think he could have just texted his buddy Tony Jones, but he did say in the article, if you look up in the article higher up, you could see other iterations of the trade. And directly above the Walker Kessler piece was Austin Reeves. But it doesn't say
Hmm.
anything about the Jazz, but he was kind of just like a little Easter egg, like, hey, if you look up, maybe Austin Reeves needs to be involved for the Jazz to get serious about trading Walker Kessler to them. Haven't gotten too deep in like those trade scenarios. I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of different ways you can go with the Lakers trade. That's why I think they make a lot of logical sense. They could use a lot of the guys we have too. So
I think Austin Reeves is a good player. I think he's super overrated.
I mean, if
Being the
you play for the Lakers, it's going to
white
happen.
guy with the Lakers, I just think, and also he gets the full benefit of the Lakers whistle. He gets one of the best whistles I think I've seen from a non-star player, and I'm always amazed the small amount of contact that he gets foul calls for. And so I'm not particularly all that jazzed about Austin Reeves. I I think it's going to take something similar to what I outlined for me to do Walker Kessler to the Lakers because I do think he and Colin are both really key if we want to do this. I don't know what the long term picture is. If we want to do this quick bounce back next year where we're now a play in team, I don't know if we want to do that. I don't know if Danny Ainge has even thought about that. I don't know that Danny Ainge lives his life like that and plans out like a Sam Presti would and all that. And so if I knew, I'd be more
The Sam
inclined to move
Presti
with.
hype man, Chad Lowe.
Look, no, I'm not even saying it's smart. I think Sam Presti should have put the foot on the gas last year. You
You
don't
did
have
say
in,
that, and you have mentioned
you
that,
don't
yeah.
have infinity chances at a title, and if you're a second round playoff team, why wouldn't you just go find a center? Um, but he's got his regimented plan. Danny Ainge isn't that guy, but if he's sitting there saying, "Hey, we're probably going to have to suck for 2 years," this quick bounce back isn't going to happen. I might be more inclined to settle for something that I felt like, hey, this is a fair value deal for these guys. But I think that in his mind, he might be thinking, hey, we get Cooper, Ace, Egor, and we're ready to go. We're going to go make a trade for um, for someone, and we're going to bounce and be in the play-in, and so we need Colin Sexton, we need Walker Kessler, because they will help you win when you're ready to do so
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, for sure. They make a lot of sense. So I think we won't be the last time we discuss Jazz Lakers deals because I
I'll
mean
tell you
we've
what,
done two with
we
them in the past 2 years already. So
we just sub in, yeah, despite what Rick Bucher says.
I saw your reply to him and I'm like, I was about to type something, then I saw what you said and you just said it perfectly. I'm like, okay, guys, like what do we
long
like do you even know do you even keep up with the NBA landscape?
long time jazz lover and lover of all things Utah, Rick Bucher. Look it up. So yeah, I was like, well, actually, no, we've done multiple deals with them where we help them, including taking Taylor Horton Tucker. Anyway,
Yeah, like you said,
um,
we've done more deals with them and Minnesota than any other team in the past 2, 3 years. So
yeah,
I have one more for you. It's
let's
a
hear
little
it.
off the wall. So I'm looking around at some of the teams that are underperforming right now who might feel a little bit of pressure to make a trade. And the Milwaukee Bucks are a team I was just really looking at. I was trying to make John Collins work there. Fortunately, they're over the second apron, so you can't aggregate salaries to get John Collins. They don't have somebody who makes within 110% of him. Brooke Lopez gets close. So I was looking at Brooke Lopez, expiring $23 million salary. Uh, and I was looking at their tradable picks they have. They have a 2031 unprotected first they can trade. A lot of the other stuff is tied up with Portland and New Orleans, but they can trade a 2031 unprotected first. If you attach that to Brooke Lopez and we send you back Colin Sexton, is that interesting enough to them? I'm not entirely sure. It's a little off the wall, I know, but and I know the Dame Sexton fit, they're both undersized, not the best. Maybe you just trade for Colin as a guy off the bench. Um, but that's an idea I threw around in my head. Maybe there Brooke Lopez is routed to a different team. I kind of threw this on the wall in the pre or in the off season. Like maybe the Lakers would be interested. They have some salary that could match that. But what do you think about the Jazz Bucks as trade partners there?
So you're saying Sexton to Milwaukee, Lopez, and 2031 first round pick out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say no. Um, for a few reasons, like Sexton and Dame.
I knew you wouldn't like this one. So
Sexton and Dame doesn't work, and then Brooke Lopez is still an important part of what they do if
is he
they're going to
really
be.
though? Is he really? Go take
I
a
mean,
look at.
last
Admittedly has not watched a lot of Milwaukee Bucks games this year. I mean, for obvious reasons, but he's not. It doesn't look like he's playing a ton of minutes or doing a ton
yeah,
on.
he's not having a good year thus far.
He's expiring too, and
I haven't watched Milwaukee either because it's kind of depressing. I've watched them melt a couple times when I needed them to not melt, but um,
they're not going to be against Cleveland twice. Thanks a lot, guys. They're not going to be big players in the free agency game because they're
they
so
can't.
higher in the salary, even with his salary coming off. I think Brook Lopez is a potential trade candidate. I don't know if we're the best match, but
Yeah, I
I
just
thought that
think
would
they
be
would have to
interesting.
get a center coming back. Like I think
So Sexton and Kessler for a 2030 pick swap and 2031 unprotected first.
the 2030 they have it will either be their pick or Portland's, so
Yeah,
they
well,
could do a
you take the
swap.
lesser of both of those.
Yeah,
I mean,
like talking out loud. Yeah,
it's not that it's not that much different than kind of the Lakers deal, except we are getting a little bit more in the Lakers deal. But so
I
the
think
lesser
Brooke.
of theirs and Portland's pick in 2030 and unprotected 2031 first. It's
I think Brooke
interesting.
just still is one of those like unicorn guys. I know he's not shooting the ball well, but like based on reputation, he shot the ball well last year. Like if we get to game 20 and he's still 28% from three and things aren't working, I could see them moving on from him potentially. But if it was as is, I would think they might be like if they really want to Colin Sexton, which they had been rumored to like Colin Sexton in the past.
Which is
Uh,
I just try to add up some pieces and bits here and there that's something that would make sense. Me personally, I think they moved Brooke Lopez this year. We'll see what happens. They have been rumored to like Colin Sexton in the past. So it works. We take on extra about 5 million, 4.5 to $5 million extra salary, which we can do. Helps them a little bit in the luxury tax as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't send them Walker and Colin unless we were getting something good for Brooke going somewhere else. Like if we were cashing in that chip too. Like if
We send
LA
Brooke
wanted to send us a
yeah
first pick or
to
something.
LA for I don't even we obviously don't want D'Lo, but for D'Lo and an unprotected first, doubt they would do that, but maybe protections off the first and a second or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it just it,
It's
it would
wonky. It's off the wall. I
those
knew you wouldn't
I don't
like
think
it.
it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy because Milwaukee is stuck. Like I was just looking at it and I'm like, well, Art, you didn't think this through. Maybe they just do Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton, but they can't aggregate
They
salary.
can't. Yeah. I would have
And
I
these
would
new
have
trade
done
rules
that
are going to really
exact
mess me
deal
up.
for John Collins if they were able to do that. So um they're the other team I was looking at too, but it just does nothing really works with them is the Denver Nuggets. They have four guys over 22 million. And those are all their core guys. And then they have nothing. And then you get to Zeke
Zeke
Naji
Naji, yeah.
at 8.8 million for 4 years. And then you got Dario Saric, you got Russell Westbrook and a bunch of young guys. Obviously, they're not going to be trading Christian Brown, but yeah, they're in a tough spot. I couldn't make anything really work with them. I've seen some stuff thrown around like Mitchell Robinson coming to us and we send out like Clarkson and Kessler or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in what the Knicks have left over.
Oh,
They don't.
I don't either. I'm just
Yeah.
so
Oh, I know. I saw it. Yeah.
the Bucks kind of they make a little bit of sense. I don't know.
I would be hunting that pick for sure, and they're going to do something desperate. I just wish it was easier.
Yeah, I
Uh,
wish we could take on Portis and Connaughton or even we take on Lopez and Connaughton and give them more stuff. But
yeah, I
it's
was going to say if we're going to package Sexton and Walker, I think that LA deal that hey, we get both picks and throw D'Angelo in it would be a little bit more of my preference because I know it's LA, but that team's gonna go as AD and LeBron go. So,
yeah.
all right. That's a good primer for now. Some of these teams are stuck, and there's going to be some desperation, and then there's going to be some sellers that I think you're going to see, like Brooklyn or someone sell some stuff off that you're like, wow, that was not a lot because they need to get worse. That brings us to Tank Watch.
Yeah.
Tank Watch art. Uh, there are several teams that have no chance of being worse than us that have more wins than us, such as all of the teams. um, but specifically, like Portland has snuck some surprise wins. Charlotte got another win, but they beat Detroit. Detroit's frisky. Brooklyn's they just might be good. Like I was watching them, I'm like, yeah, this team is kind of like good in a midway.
I mean, they kind of a little bit remind you of our start to 2022. They got a bunch of guys who are not bad, but and then when you put them together, they work. I mean, you're not going to be completely horrendous when you put Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, um, Cam Thomas, Ben. I don't love Ben Simmons, but you put him on the floor, like you're not gonna be the worst team in the league. It's just not gonna happen. You just have too many guys that can do stuff different than throwing out Patty Mills and Svi out there. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so what is there one team that you might be more worried about that you didn't think you were before?
So two teams kind of come to my mind. I mentioned Toronto before. I think we both were like, the first couple of games were like, yeah, they're going to be sneaky bad. They are still bad. They're 2-6.
They're frisky. They've had a couple very close games with Denver.
But isn't Scotty Barnes hurt?
Scotty Barnes is hurt. Emmanuel quickly is hurt.
Grady Dick's been playing good though. So
Dick, Dick has been awesome.
we were
What are you
both.
laughing at?
Were you a big Dick guy pre-draft? I can't remember.
I mean, I like Dick. I just didn't, love it.
Um, so San Antonio's kind of like we both were kind
That's
of
the
like
one.
we know we're like, dude, these bastards again. They're gonna be sneaky bad again, I feel like.
And, shouts to
But
Pop.
I was
Shouts
told
and respect to Pop and his health concern.
for sure.
Pop's an awesome guy.
Yeah. I was told
And
Victor was gonna win a ring on his rookie deal though, so
I
I'm
was
just
told
shocked.
I was told that, but I was watching and I turned it on briefly because I'm at the office finishing things and I like having games on in the background and I turned them on for a second and I saw Victor shoot like a standstill one-footed from straight away, like weird shot and I'm just like, man, this guy is still just doing whatever he wants. It's like this
Yeah,
isn't like
and he's I wouldn't like he hasn't been playing to what our expectations were of him coming into the season because he's playing almost like he's like a Kevin Durant more than kind of in the paint where you're 6 to 7 inches taller than their tallest guy and you could just dominate inside. He's kind of been playing on the perimeter a little bit, um, which has been helping them. He's obviously
yeah,
exploiting space, but it's helping them lose games.
it's the like pull up from like 5 feet behind the line. I know like he hit one against us or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but you didn't like we were gonna give you all the rest of those 5 feet. I feel
Yeah,
like
one
like
exactly. That's the
like
biggest.
he's really still exploring the room. I'm not trying to say he's unserious for that reason, but it was just like, wait, I don't know that this is still like locked. Like I don't think they're like locked in at this point. And then Sohan got hurt, which is a two-edged sword because they keep trying to use Sohan as like a center. Like it kind of negates the advantages you get with having Wemby as a five out, but that just means Zach Collins plays more and he's been up and down and mostly down.
Yeah.
So I see San Antonio and I'm watching them and they're the sneaky team. Like I think Washington ends up worse than us. Detroit's frisky. I think they end up.
I don't know. I kind of think, and I was saying this before the season, so this is not hindsight. I thought Washington was going to be a little bit more frisky than people were expecting, and they seem all right. I don't know if I'm ready to say that we're going to be worse than them, but I think Toronto, Washington, San Antonio, and Portland. I think those four teams and us ran out the top five when it's all said and done. And you know what? It's really early, of course, but a lot of these teams that are at the bottom, Orlando, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, like they're all obviously going to play better. So there's not a lot of like really bad teams right now. Like you said, some teams may become sellers as the season goes on, and then obviously second half of the season, people just they just really get grimy with the tanking, and we're not against that either. So I think it'll come down to about five or six teams. I think I'm very comfortable saying we're going to end up as a bottom five team for sure.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that, but I'm now greedy, and so I
Oh,
kind
I'm
of want to
greedy
be
too.
like,
I just my whole I
eh,
want us to be the worst team in the league. And I also just would like not to set the record for the least wins. Like, can we just get it one over the
there you go.
that's not being that's reasonable, right?
I just don't like that you doubted Jordan Poole. And if there's one thing I believe, it's that Jordan Poole will lead the Wizards to a record that's worse than ours. Like, I am not fooled by early season Jordan Poole hitting a few shots and being locked in. Like,
I mean,
I'm just telling
I
you.
wasn't admittedly not the biggest Koulibaly fan. He's been playing pretty good though, and
Um,
it
I'm gonna, I'm going to honor the
the
moratorium
Mormons.
on talking about other people in the Taylor Hendricks draft. We're not allowed to talk about them. So
Hey, I'm just throwing this out there, guys. I saw Chad throw around a trade offer for Jarris Walker earlier.
I did.
Just saying.
Look, I
He's speechless right now. He doesn't even know what to say.
well, like edit all this out. I got to come up with something quick. Um, Let me draft a couple comebacks real quick. I That's fake news. It never happened. Like, that's just what it is. We're in that
Misinformation.
season where I can just say no.
Yeah.
Never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. Um, yeah, the tank is going well. Last week, as far as our record goes, you and I predicted 0-3, and the Jazz pulled off a resounding victory. Again, we never should have doubted THT. Uh, he got me one last time with a 3-pointer 4 feet behind the line with 14 seconds on the shot clock, pulling up and shooting it and bricking it, and me just burying my head saying why. He got
Yep.
me one last time of just disappointed head drop.
Yep.
Why did you do this?
Mount Rushmore tank commander Taylor Horton Tucker. And he's still coming back to bite us.
Yeah, you got us one last time. Revenge game. All right, so we've got 3 games this week. At Milwaukee tomorrow, at San Antonio, and then there's a day of rest in there, and then a couple days of rest, and then we're back home for Phoenix for the Grayson Allen revenge game.
Hmm.
Um, what do you got, Art?
I think so. Before a win against Chicago, I predicted this Spurs game in my mind was going to be the first win for us. I think we lose to Milwaukee, we beat San Antonio, and we lose to Phoenix. We're going to go 1-2, so we will be 2-8 to start our first 10 games.
And I don't like that we agree. I do think that San Antonio game it is we're gonna end up splitting those. And Lowry's coming back.
Hey, maybe Lowry, he's going to play against Milwaukee, but if he maybe he tweaks his spasm or gets contused and
Yeah,
misses
it
that
might
San
get more
Antonio game.
spasmed. You don't know.
Multiple spasm.
That's right. Gotta watch out for that second one. Milwaukee, that is, they are not great. Giannis missed a game. I didn't see the injury report, so I'm worried about Milwaukee and I'm worried about San Antonio. But Milwaukee really needs a win. They're obviously going to be playing hard. Um, Doc Rivers is involved
Great
though,
coach.
and dang, I'm gonna go ahead and say 0-3 because I'm 50-50 on whether or not we win one of those games.
Okay.
And just so that we have some difference, I will say 0-3 because I am pretty split and I want to be the hopeful tank guy that thinks we'll go 0-3.
Okay.
I want to be a little grimier and dirtier than you because that's what gets us ahead in this world.
It does.
So just a little grimier. Um, that that's that's the podcast. Anything else we need to talk about before we endeavor in another week of tanking basketball?
No, it's a pleasure as always. Like we mentioned earlier, we will be weekly. We're trying to do every Wednesday night for you guys. Obviously, if schedules happen and it might be tweaked to a Tuesday or Thursday, but I like this weekly schedule. We don't have a ton of jazz stuff, content, podcasts out there for people to consume, and I just am continually blown away by the support we've been getting from you guys. Super appreciated. And follow us on Twitter as always. Chad Lowe at Jack or at Jpotting around. Art Cummings at Art Takes Note. Like, subscribe, rate, leave a comment. We love it all. Appreciate you guys.
Yep, and shout out to my buddy Rich, who always likes to get shouted out. I hope that new antifungal cream works out, and I hope you're feeling better. And so, yeah, shout out Rich.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Later.